You're listening to the Achievement Mastery Podcast, the show where ambition meets action and high performers come to break through limits, scale big dreams, and master their success. Hosted by performance coach and achievement strategist Lajos Kovacs, a trusted guide to driven entrepreneurs and growth-minded leaders across Europe and beyond. Each episode delivers powerful conversations with world-class experts, visionary entrepreneurs, and unstoppable changemakers, designed to fuel your mindset, your momentum, and your mission. If you're ready to rise above the noise and unlock your next level, you're in the right place. This is the Achievement Mastery Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Achievement Mastery Podcast. I'm Lajos, your achievement strategist, and today's guest is someone at the cutting edge of performance and technology. I'm honored to welcome Bally Binning, a performance coach and AI educator who's on a mission to bridge the human experience with artificial intelligence in a meaningful way. With a background in leadership development and coaching, she now leads Leaderize and is also the founder of Golden Threads, where she offers powerful AI training and growth strategies for professionals and entrepreneurs alike. What sets Bally apart is her human-centered approach to AI. At a time when many feel overwhelmed by sheer volume of new tools, she's helping others make sense of it all, making AI not just accessible, but aligned with our values, vision, and humanity. Bally, welcome to the Achievement Mastery Podcast. How did your journey into performance coaching and AI education begin?
Hi, Lajos. Thank you for this. How did that come about? It came about really understanding that leaders need much more than just sitting in this space and waiting. And so what I started noticing a few years ago, I started using it myself and I found it absolutely mind-blowing. And it was in that instance, for me, it was the right thing to do to actually introduce it to others to support their leadership growth. And that's hence I took that path. And as I started implementing, I noticed that people started asking questions like, how are you doing this? And so as I got further in down the path, I just want to take people along the journey with me. Just to say, Leaderize is the company, and Golden Threads, I was honored to collaborate on writing with 15 other female authors. And we put together Golden Threads, and Sue Williams is the author of that. So if you've got that, and one of the co-authors, an absolutely phenomenal experience where we had 15 women all over the world come together and co-author a book together, Golden Threads, and that actually is in Audible edition, which is arriving soon also.
Thank you very much for clarifying this. Yes, I was wrong introducing you as a founder. You're a co-author, and so you have 14 colleagues of yours, or 14 other women contributing to this. Is it correct now?
That's correct. Yes, absolutely. So 15 other women. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much. Thank you for clarifying this. You combine two very different words, human development and artificial intelligence. How did those two paths converge for you?
Brilliant question. A lot of people are talking about AI and they're thinking of like, that's the thing, right? It's very much, we're just going to automate and it will just do the thing that's as on the tin. And for me, as a performance coach, it is absolutely paramount that while we're in this space, that we're raising consciousness and we're allowing people to step into their utilizing these tools. And most people will have seen this already when they're using tools, that they're noticing that they're actually starting to understand them. So it's like actually conversing with these tools in a manner that actually aligns with themselves. And for me, it was about, sharing that path that I started noticing a few years back, and ensuring that human-centric process, that's dear to my heart, about ensuring that people actually then are aligning their own values and beliefs in that, and then taking others through that journey. And the leaders I support will manage teams, but also before they do that, they're also making sure that they understand how they're showing up in this world in using these tools.
Many entrepreneurs feel overwhelmed by the sheer number of AI tools available that's growing day by day. What's your advice for someone just starting to integrate AI into their workflow?
That's a great question. Like as you know, we're both kind of in that field of performance coaching, and we know there are so many tools that we actually utilize when we're serving our clients. And it's the same principle when we're thinking of AI tools. It's not going to be a fit. We just don't give everybody everything. We're very selective in the tools that we use. We want to really understand where people are in their journey, right? And understand that, start with the number one tool, right? So whatever that tool might be, I would then start with that number one tool and then familiarize yourself with that and then start utilizing and bring it into your a repertoire of like, okay, I understand. And then looking at where it is, like, what's your mission, right? What is it that you want to achieve? Right. So we begin with that because remember, tools are just the tactics, it's the thing, and tactics are very short-lived. So they come and go, as you just rightly said. So it's been very mindful of like, what am I going to use? And what am I using it for? Right. So let's get back to kind of the basics and understanding what that would look like before we advocate, okay, we've got a whole shelf of books and we can, or tools that we can draw on. Let's look at the one that's going to be most pertinent to you as a leader.
Can you walk us through a typical transformation you've helped someone make by applying AI in a strategic way?
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I love that question. So now what I found is walking through the steps of using AI. Some of the transformations have been, when you're using AI, look, most people are using it as a gap fill or a dictation, or they're writing emails. Now, most tools can do what average things a lot faster. So average is becoming faster in the AI space. So the transformation is how people use LLM models. LLMs are large language learning models that actually they have so much insight there, but actually honing that in and applying the individual's voice, right? So a leader can actually understand how they're showing up in this space in leadership and the terminology, the semantics, so for me, it's about the transformation is understanding where they are, and what Leaderize does as a company support them thinking, okay, is my voice being diluted? Am I actually in this space where I'm showing up my authentic, and does it align with who I am as a leader? Well, if we go with very generic tools, it doesn't. The transformation comes in when they start thinking about using it to communicate and produce reports that would have taken them months, like a business report, for example, that would have taken them months, but then they've been able to already, as knowledge leaders, entrepreneurs that are utilizing these, they can actually, produce a report in a way that aligns with their specific voice. And people are saying, actually, the AI assistants that we've done together have been the thing that's been the most shift for them. Because without that, we're all going to sound very homogenous if we're not careful.
What are some of the most underrated or overlooked AI tools that you recommend?
Overrated, as in
Underrated, not overrated, underrated or
underrated.
overlooked.
Ah, okay. They're kind of overlooked, as in, people are not even thinking about them at all.
Exactly.
And, for me, there's quite a few. I'm really kind of like Gemini for me really stands out. Like was one of the ones that really stands out as one of the tools, one of the leading tools for me. I also use Minstra AI. That's actually one that I find is actually really like if people haven't tried, that's really one to look at. And also some of the AI kind of platforms, open source in the sense that we're looking at like DeepSeek and of course, I keep going back to the one that I use, especially a lot of people have discussions about Claude and GPT. We always have our favorite, right? And my go-to, like most people, we have like, which one's your favorite one? People have a go-to. It's like, it's like that Apple, people go with like, is it going to be like Mac, Microsoft, that type of thing? But it's like, okay, which are the one? So for me, I have Notebook LM is one that I'm really kind of, I suppose I've given you a few there. And of course, I go to ChatGPT, OpenAI's product.
Yeah, you just mentioned something that struck a chord with me because I come from the security world, so I have a quite a strong security background, and I don't just think about these AI tools as opportunities, but also as danger or a form of risk or threat. And I just read an article one day about people, about how they use and what they use AI for. And even some people said that AI became their best friend, their soulmate kind of thing. So what do you think about this? Where is the danger or the misuse of AI?
It's actually a really good question where people are actually seeing their, models, AI models, whichever, which, there might be GPT when it speaks back to you, you've got that option of like having a real conversation. Remember, it mirrors how you're showing up. That's the bit that become getting that human-centric approach in how you're conversing. It really understands you. And so, that singularity is kind of like, that is something we're seeing because people are saying, wow, it's really mirroring. It's understanding more than maybe my husband understood me, right? He understands things that before I even say it. So, absolutely, there's much more of that. But there's also just to be mindful that when we're using these tools, if we're repeating the same thing, we're going to get the same output, right? So if we're showing up in the same way, what about those hidden biases that may prevail because using the tool the same way? That's kind of some of the things. I mean, there's a lot of ethical implications of using these tools, and we can obviously look at that. But if we're kind of not careful, we'll still, if we're doing this the same thing, we'll end up just doing the same thing. We're just repeating the same habitual patterns, as you and I know in the coaching world, and that takes time. And that's hence where you draw in coaches to support you with that, because we'll just replicate the same. And we want to be really mindful that we're not doing that. Transformation comes with looking at these tools from a different perspective in a way that it opens up our mind as opposed to closing it. And so that's kind of one of my big messages for anyone listening in, just to be mindful. If you're showing up, you may be showing up the same day, you're doing the same thing. So just be mindful of that.
Yes, and I also realized that, especially with these, ChatGPT and AI tools that you can communicate with back and forth, and they have a tendency to please you. So it really matters how you ask certain questions or what you ask, because you can ask in a way that they confirm your belief or your thoughts, and it's not a real conversation because they want to please you, and they're going to answer in a way that they think you expect, and so they can confirm ill-fated thoughts or limiting beliefs, and that's quite risky, I think. So, and that's why I like your approach and your AI training, because we have to learn how to use it properly, because it can be used for great things, but it can be misused, and also in a self-harming way, not just harming others. And I'm not talking about, or I'm talking about as a security guy or former security guy, and I even have a training now about the security risk of AI tools and AI models. So yes, people can use it to harm others, to cause financial loss or whatever, to scam others, but you can also use it to harm yourself. For example, this way, by just getting confirmation on your limiting beliefs or your wrong thoughts, because it doesn't have this critical thinking element. This is what I experienced, and tell me if I'm wrong, but the piece that's missing of being these systems close to humans, or this critical thinking part.
That's a really great question, and security is huge. And the thing that stands out is that that's exactly what I work with my clients on, is actually looking at the contrarian view. Now, I create kind of prompting that looks at these type of ways of approaching it, and working with my fellow AI kind of, in a mastermind group, we're really kind of delving really deep in the last sort of 18 months. This is exactly what we've been doing, is this is then that I'm able to bring this out. Now, if we're not, like you said, if it's just confirming and therefore, like, it's that nicety, yeah, you're doing a great job, yeah, you're doing amazing, yeah, I understand you, do you really understand me? So what we want to be able to do is remember, it's only as good as what we ask it. And it's the same thing as in our coaching. We can only support our clients as much as those questions are the ones that help, that transform and get those results. So if we're not careful, then we're just kind of confirming or just allowing it to affirm what we want to hear, and it makes us feel good. That's not how we're using it. We want to really stretch the model. Remember, it will do what we're actually asking it. So prompting is something that I'm actually looking at, in fact, in one of the sessions I'm running tomorrow, is about how do we really look at these models. And also security is the other one. And I'll come on to that afterwards if you want me to, about how we would actually then ensure that whatever we're creating and what we're putting out there, we've also got intellectual property, but we're also looking at securing our AI assistance is something that I'm now working with. And it's going to be one of the trainings that I'll run in a few weeks. But tomorrow is about prompting, but not just prompting and asking it to do the thing you want it to do. You actually create a system that allows you to then replicate that in your own process and in the way that you kind of have it's almost like I call dynamic or meta prompt, if you like.
Yeah, another interesting part is whether we should learn from AI or AI should learn from us. And there are these models that are able to learn. As more information you put in, it tries to be you, or you can teach it to be you. And it comes back to a story. A friend of mine, they have a company, so they replace receptionists. They have AI receptionists. And he told me that they had to turn off the self-learning part of it, because when it learned from people, it became so rude. It developed bad manners. It started cursing. And they realized it wasn't a good way, but they rather use canned answers. So the model can just use what they input, and they shouldn't let it learn from the people that the model interacts with. And that was a very, very interesting experience. What do you think about this?
I love that. I think it comes back to the culture of the company, the organization, right? So you and I work in this space and we understand that. So when that happens, it will only kind of behave in a way that the individuals within that organization behave. And if they are abrupt and rude, what we've also found that, when we've got these models, it will, it scrapes, right? It looks at all kind of averages and looks at, it's based on vectors and algorithms. So it's picking up. And so it kind of gives generic responses. What we want to be doing is pushing it and getting to that edge of really asking it to and challenge the model, right? So when it's replicating the individuals, it sounds like what's been accepted or acceptable in that instant for that organization, it's being picked up. So it's great for things like auditing and improving and looking at how we can improve our customer service and reception desk. It's the kind of space where people walk in and they see that. So yeah, it's really interesting, and that would have been a really kind of a conversation for all of them, certainly an eye-opener and space for what's going on. What have we not been noticing that we need to start noticing for ourselves, because it sheds light on things that we've just let go or we're not considering. So it really is great. AI is so, we're going to see this much more for auditing, much for compliance. As you talked about security, it's a big area about guardrailing what it can and what it can't say. Like you said, if it's got like those obscure, words, and actually sometimes people want those. We want to stretch the model because looking at kind of how we're interacting with the model.
What common mistakes do you see people make when trying to use AI for business growth or productivity?
That's a great question. But the biggest mistakes is people think that it will just do everything. So that, oh, biggest mistake is people just use it to write an email. AI's written my email. Great. You got Copilot. Yeah, brilliant. And what does that mean? Yep, you've got an email written. The other biggest mistake is that people are using it to kind of, if you like, just auto respond and not really checking what's been sent out. So it's almost then people are picking up on that and they're noticing. I was into having a conversation with another fellow AI strategist, and we were talking about how in this space, because we were looking at semantics, the meaning of like, chat GPT sort of terminology, and some of the things that really stood up is also the syntactic structure. That means the way the LLM models are picking up the sameness. In other words, they're picking up a lot of chunks of ways, formatting that people are just using. And so we see that. We're seeing a lot more people using very kind of formulaic, kind of very, simplistic template type of approaches. Well, that will be automated later on. All that will be automated. So you're better positioned to utilize these tools in a way you're thinking strategically, because if that can be done now, it won't be long that will just replace what you're doing. So just be mindful of that, not to scare people, but just to be thinking, like I said, average, we're getting faster at producing those things, but just to be mindful. And just a gap fill. Oh, just a gap fill activity. Well, it will just, and those are some of the biggest errors, things that they're using it for, in my opinion, very simplistic things, like putting the kettle on, but not really knowing that what it's doing.
If you're enjoying this episode, don't forget to follow the podcast and leave us a review. It helps more people discover these powerful conversations. And if you're ready to take your personal or professional growth to the next level, make sure you check out the show notes for Bally's free biweekly AI trainings and other helpful resources. And back to you, Bally, now, because now I'm very, very curious about this AI thing and everything. You mentioned that your biggest challenge was not knowing how to apply the plethora of tools available. How did you overcome that, and what mindset shift was necessary?
That's a great question. Now, what I did was I wanted to test all of them. Right. I wanted to have a look at all of the various tools, and most people listening in, they will be familiar or would have heard of them, like HeyGen or 11 Labs, where you've got voice cloning. So what I found was it comes back to really being clear on which ones I need at the time. But what it opened up my understanding is how all these tools do different things, right? So some are very much looking at kind of videos, although we're getting a lot of the voice cloning in some of the more kind of revised, and they're getting very good, right? So how did I overcome that? For me was to get familiar with one tool and how that particular tool changed, and then understanding how others will support and how I would use those. So it could, and then I created a process basically. One would be kind of, if I'm looking at brief notes, I'd use one model, which would be Notebook LM. Then I would have an assistant, and each of my AI assistants have their kind of, their assistants, they've been trained to do a specific thing. It's like having my intern do a specific job for me. And so they will be tasked for that. And then, I'll have various of those, I have about 57 of them doing various tasks. So I kind of draw on those. And so for me, where I could see the shift is training them to do the work rather than thinking I've got to get more tools, just to kind of really hone in on those, drawing on my knowledge in each of those AI systems. And, there's a lot more exciting things happening, in fact. So.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about because I'm also trying and testing a lot of them. And it can be quite time consuming. It's entertaining, but you have to be very careful of where you spend your time and whether it's useful at the end of the day, or you're just playing around with some toys, but it's very, very interesting. It's super exciting. And it's really, there are great tools are coming up day by day. You have to learn. Everybody has to learn because now it's getting more and more into our lives. And also one thing that's, again, I'm always coming back to my security self, is you have to be able to recognize when these tools are used against you. So you have to be able to recognize even the patterns, what you said, the language patterns when you receive an email or whatever, whether it was written by a real person or was written by an AI program, especially if it contains something important. They ask something from you, they ask money from you or whatever. I think this is again something that everybody needs. But again, the question again is who wants it? And that's the little bit more difficult part. But I have another question for you. How do you balance embracing cutting edge technology with staying grounded in human connections as a performance coach?
It is for me, it always comes back to really aligning everything I'm doing, because you and I have both seen this, there's always lots of things coming our way, and we're always going to have a new thing, like new shiny object out there. But it always comes back to who are we? Right, in this space, and how do we want to show up in this space, in this world? And as a performance coach, when I work with leaders, it's everything we're thinking about is they're going to be using these tools not in their work, just their workplace. They're taking these tools and using them with their families, be having those conversations, and really being mindful of, okay, that they are here. This has been coming for a while now, and it reminds me of when people went from having a mobile phone and they were like, oh, I'm never going to have a mobile phone. Well, where are those people? And so really get becoming open to the idea that these tools are there, but understanding how to use them, as you rightly said, where people are using them in a way that they're not understanding this. There could be scams, or thinking, well, is this an AI generated? Most likely it is AI generated. They're pretty good. A lot of the videos, you may actually be following AI content and you not even notice that. And this is because, like I said, I've seen a few come out, and it's really hard to differentiate. Did I want to create something where it could just be, Bally cloned and no interaction with people? No, I wanted that human approach, and I wanted really to open up those conversations, allow people to really experience, just not kind of just think, I'm not going to try this. I'm like, okay, let me show you how this is done. And so by showing, people are like, wow, this is possible, because you could be given something, but you don't really know how to drive it. Like, you're given the keys to something, you're like, oh, I don't even know how to, like, oh, how do I get in? And you're like, how do you open the door? So, like, what's the first thing I need to do? How do I safeguard my AI system so, people aren't like taking my data? Like, so yeah, those are some of the things that will come up. And so for leaders, the things that you can automate, let's automate those. And so you're able to lead people in this space where you're showing up and being there for them and having those conversations. So no longer do you need to hide and just be tasking things, because those could be automated. So go and spend the time with those that you lead, and spend time with those that you want to spend time with.
Amazing. If you're following our show, that you might know, we have a rapid fire question section. So I'm going to ask you a few quick questions. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So what's one AI tool you can't live without right now?
Okay, you put me on the spot. My favorite still is my GPT.
What's daily habit that sets you up for success?
My daily habits. So I've got, as a performance coach, you and I work in this space as performance coach. So my daily habits are, I've got a few: a daily walk, meditation, journaling.
What's one piece of advice you'd give to someone afraid of AI?
The advice I'd give to is that it's normal to come up with resistance. We often don't want to resist change. We know that this is often the case, and start small.
Bally, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your wisdom. I love how you combine innovation with integrity and how you're making AI feel not only accessible, but meaningful. To our listeners, if you want to learn more about Bally's work or join her free AI trainings, check out the links in the show notes. It will be worth it, I guarantee. And if this conversation sparked something for you, please follow or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform so you don't miss a future episode of the Achievement Mastery Podcast. Until next time, keep striving, keep growing, and I will see you in the next episode.
Thank you, Lars.